What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going over every single change you need to know about going into Lightfall tomorrow. And just so you guys know what is going to be in this video, I'm not going to be going over like lore and story things, mostly things that will affect the way you play the game and the videos I'll be making in Lightfall. So things like loadouts, the mod changes, weapon changes, subclass changes, crafting changes, then even changes to PvE activities, including all the stuff that I think is the most important things that you should know when you start to play tomorrow. Then after that, I'll be talking about where I've been the past year and my hopes for this coming year. But before we get into all that good stuff, a quick word from today's video partner. Today's video partner is NordVPN. While on the internet, there are always looming threats at every corner. The one that hits closest to home for me is DDoS attacks, which is distributed denial of service. Basically what it is someone will send a high volume of data to your IP address, which clogs it up and denies you access to using it yourself, which happens all the time in gaming, either through Discord, Twitter, Twitch, whatever it is. And using NordVPN will hide your IP address and make it so you can't be targeted. And that is not the only benefit of NordVPN. You can also access blocked content in your country, or if you're on vacation, wherever you are in this age of streaming, you'll always be able to access everything no matter where you are. All while being super easy to use. There's an auto connect feature which will find the closest server to you, and with multiple thousands to choose from, there will always be one good for you. And one of the biggest things I always hear about VPNs in general with gaming is it throttles your download speed, ping, upload speed, whatever it is. As you see here, these are the results of a speed test I ran with the VPN on, and it did not affect any of my speeds whatsoever. So if you're ready to start protecting yourself from the looming threats online, you can get an exclusive NordVPN deal at nordvpn.com/error. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And right now, celebrating NordVPN's 11th birthday, if you purchase a 2-year plan, additional gift will be granted to you. Once again, thanks to NordVPN for being today's video partner. So starting off, I want to start with the weapon changes. There's not too many, but I think they're going to be pretty impactful, the ones that there are. So starting off, one thing to note is there's going to be a lot of old weapons that will be focusable in different activities, Crucible, Nightfalls, whatever it is. And the one that's definitely worth pointing out is going to be the Hothead, which is one of the best rockets in the game for DPS. And that was available in old Nightfalls a long time ago. And with it being what seems to be one of the best DPS weapons for Lightfall, it's going to be pretty important for new players or players that just didn't get it to go ahead and get one of those. So that's going to be a really good change. They are also nerfing linears by 15% to champions, mini bosses, and bosses, which is a pretty good change. Linears have obviously been like the go-to option for quite some time now. And right now in the meta, depending on the boss, if it's like a crit boss or not, linears and rockets are pretty similar in terms of DPS, just depending on the boss. Some encounters are rockets, some encounters are linears, and with this change to linears, I think is further push rockets into the #1 spot, and it might not even really be close. So I definitely think we're headed towards a rocket meta for the foreseeable future, which is why I mentioned the Hothead being so important that it's gonna be focusable. Another change they're making is machine guns will get 10% more damage in PvE, and depending on the frame, 20 to 50% more ammo. So that should just make them a little bit better for like Nightfalls, things like that, and a better pick overall. Probably still not going to be a DPS option, probably never will, but this should be more usable in different activities. Another interesting change is heavy jails are getting a 20% increase to bosses and 40% to miners, and this will affect every single heavy jail except Parasite. And they're making it easier to aim with like increasing the detonation radius and like the hit detection, stuff like that. So you won't be missing it as often. And it'll be interesting to see if 20% is enough to compete with rockets. The issue with heavy jails has always been total damage output. So for like raid bosses and longer boss fights, you just would shoot over ammo, then kind of be out and then have nothing left to shoot. So they weren't the best option for most boss fights outside of like maybe strikes and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if 20% will change that, but they should be better, and we'll definitely be making videos on that once that's in our hands. But a huge change that will just complement the rocket meta is kinetic specials are going from a 1.05 to a 1.15 damage ratio, which means things like Iznagi's Burden, Arbalest, Witherhoard, or like any kinetic sniper, whatever it is, should be a really good option to pair with rockets. So I can definitely foresee with this change and the linear nerf that things like Izanagi plus an auto-loading rocket, or even a clown cartridge hothead with this rotation I'm showing on screen right now, I think would work really well. So I definitely think the overall meta in PvE will be Izanagi Burden, Arbalist, Witherhoard, plus a really good primary of choice, something like the Akawas SMG, Kawas Mini Tool, whatever it is, depending on your subclass. Then pair it with a rocket of choice, either auto-loading or the hothead or whatever comes in Lightfall. I can definitely foresee that being the best loadout for Lightfall in the foreseeable future until they make more changes. Another interesting weapon change is Leviathan's Breath will get a 30% damage increase to champions and applies volatile on perfect draws. So that should be a actually really good pick for unstoppable champions, with it doing a lot more damage now and applies volatile, which will add even more damage. So that could actually be, for the first time in my opinion, a real pick. I know they've tried to push it to be like this unstoppable champion weapon, but there was just always better things to use, right? And this might actually make it a real choice. Another thing is Sunshot now applies Scorch, which is just a good change and should make it really good with some solar builds. Now moving on to the loadout and mod changes. First thing to note is there'll be 10 loadouts you can have in Destiny 2 now, with this huge new loadout screen, kind of like the transmog screen, where you'll be able to see everything in one place and organize your loadouts extremely well and hot swap between them. And they're adding a way for everyone to get all the mods. Once you get Guardian rank 6, you will automatically unlock all of the current mods, which is really good. They're getting rid of mod energy types, so no longer will there be solar, stasis, arc, and void. They'll just all be under one category. Across the board, most costs are going down. They're getting rid of the combat mod slot and adding in another armor slot. So that means you can run like 3 Ashes assets and things like that. There'll be 3 of those slots. And they're getting rid of weapon type mods and making them energy type now, which means right now it was kind of hard to always use like a sniper loader or hand cannon loader because they were 4 and 5 energy. But now if you're just using a solar sniper or solar hand cannon, all you have to do is run the solar reload mod, and it's going to be a lot more cost effective. The artifact now will be unlockable perks that you don't have to actually apply to armor, but you'll only be able to use 12 at a time, but still that'll free up a lot of slots on your armor and the energy. And resetting your artifact will be free, so you can change around which 12 you have at any time. Also, they're getting rid of match game and adding in subclass based anti-champion things. So like scorching a target, freezing a target, all those different things will be able to interact with different champions, and you won't have to rely only on the artifact mods. So they're removing the combat armor slot. So what is replacing that is going to be something new called the armor charge system, which is kind of like a combination of Charge of Light and Elemental Wells. And the gist of the way it works is, as long as you have one of the mods on, you get access to the system, kind of like the old Charge of Light. And by default, when you pick up 1 orb of power, you get 1 charge of the system. And most of the mods that currently give you Elemental Wells or Charge with Light now equal a orb of power, which a cool side effect of this change might be that super recharge rate might be a lot quicker with all these different mods creating orbs of power. And by default, you can have up to 3 charges of this new system, up to 6 with mods like Charged Up. And kind of like the old Charge of Light system, every single time you use a mod that uses one of the effects, it will consume 1 charge. But now the passive mods, for example, Font of Wisdom, will now drain a charge every 10 seconds. But there will be mods that will alter these effects, like Elemental Time Dilation, Stacks on Stacks, and things like that. And that is more or less all we know of this system. Most of the mods that are currently in the game should be in this new system. This is unclear exactly how they might work. But one huge change is, obviously there's no more actual Elemental Wells being created. All these mods create Orbs of Power. So there's nothing to like go pick up and get ability energy like there is with Elemental Wells right now. But they're moving this functionality to subclasses where existing fragments or even new fragments are getting built-in ways to create objects on each subclass, and each subclass has a different object they can create that I imagine will kind of look like Elemental Wells right now. And depending on the subclass, picking these up will do different things. So on Solar, the new object are Fire Sprites, which will give you grenade energy when you pick them up, Void subclasses have Void Breaches, which will give you class ability. Then for Arc, they're using the old Ionic Traces, and it's unclear what they'll give you when you pick them up. I don't think I saw it anywhere in any article. And the same for Stasis, they're going to be using the Stasis Shards, and those ones gave you melee energy, so I'm assuming that will stay the same. And there'll be one for Strand also, which leads me to the subclass changes. I'm not going to go over all the new Strand abilities, subclasses, aspects, fragments that we've seen so far. Once we have those in our hands, obviously we'll be making all kinds of cool builds. But overall, Strand looks really cool. It looks like the main theme is a way to like slow down enemies by suspending them, kind of like stasis in a way. But then the debuff system seems to be reducing the damage that enemies do, which is going to be a cool twist on a subclass. So I'm definitely interested to see how that plays out and looking forward to making builds with it. But overall, their goal with subclass changes this year is to reduce ability uptime. And one way they're doing that is making most stats at tier 10 the same as they are at tier 8 right now, which means slower grenades, slower class abilities, lower resilience, all that good stuff. And that combined with the removal of elemental wells and things like that, I think we will see a reduction in like really crazy ability spam builds. But I'm sure there'll still be a lot of cool stuff. And one change to some classes to note that I found was there's gonna be a new solar fragment where solar grenade final blows cure, which means instant health back. So for the Starfire Warlock build, it really didn't rely on any mods at all. So I think going into Lightfall, it's gonna be a pretty safe bet to say it's gonna be one of the better builds in the game, just because of the fact that nothing should be changing. If anything, it might get better. And with the fact that this fragment will allow you to heal on grenade final blows, that was kind of like the only downside of the build, was you had to use Empowering Rift, and there was really no way to heal with it. But with this being added, there is gonna be like almost no flaws with the build. So I definitely foresee this being one of the go-to builds early on into Lightfall, along with whatever Strand entails. But that's definitely gonna be one of my go-to builds, probably for day one. Moving on to weapon crafting. So a lot of changes are just kind of making the system easier to understand and work with. So they're making it so Deep Sight only drops on craftable weapons, and once you craft the weapon, you can no longer get another one with Deep Sight on it. So this way, whenever you do get a red box weapon, it's gonna be something important, and you know it's gonna be working towards, you know, crafting the weapon. And to get by with this, or removing almost all the crafting materials and replace them with just the generic Destiny 2 materials, so like shards, glimmer, enhancement cores, things like that, which overall I think is a really good change and should make crafting a more streamlined experience. And finally, the last topic I want to talk about is a few changes to Vanguard activities. So in general, all the activities in the game that have difficulty options, Hero will cap you at 5 below, Legend 15 below, Master 20 below, and Grandmaster 25 below. And they're reworking a lot of the modifiers. So instead of things like Singes, we're gonna have Surge, Threat, and Overcharge, all of which will be at 25%, but they won't be able to stack. So Surge will be a 25% buff matching if you're matching elements, Threat will be 25% to you from enemies, and Overcharge will be 25% based on weapon types. But you won't be able to stack the Surge and Overcharge. If you have both at the same time on one weapon, it'll still just be 25%. And finally, the Vanguard Ops playlist will be power disabled, which means you won't be able to be crazily over leveled, and it should feel reasonably difficult. Not in like a hard way, but not like you're just running past everything and not caring. And they'll be adding in the Psyops and Heist Battlegrounds into that, along with adding Battlegrounds into Nightfalls over time. I believe the Mars Heist Battleground will be the first one added, but that should be an interesting change. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think the Heist Battlegrounds will work, but some of the other Battlegrounds I think are not great, but we'll just see how that goes. If anything, it's going to be a new interesting change and kind of freshen things up. And yeah, I think that is all of my top things to know before playing Lightfall tomorrow. A lot of really cool changes to look forward to, and it's gonna be a whole new landscape of build crafting starting tomorrow. So I hope to be back full time this year with videos and be covering all these different changes, making all kinds of cool builds along with all the other good stuff. which leads me to just quickly talking about where I was the past year. Overall, I think a lot of people in the community have been slowly getting burnt out of the seasonal model, and it definitely hit really hard this year. Witch Queen I played a lot, uploaded quite a bit, but going into Seasonal Haunted with the Leviathan event, I found it really hard to play the activity over and over again. It was practically the only thing to do for like the seasonal loop, and that definitely killed that season very quickly for me and led to me basically not uploading. It also didn't help that Solar 3.0, while being really good, I think each character had one pretty easy, straightforward best build, and outside of that one build, there wasn't really too much else you could do with the subclasses, so that didn't help either. Then moving on to Season of the Plunder, I think that season was better in my opinion than Leviathan in terms of like the gameplay loop, but it still wasn't great by any means. I definitely tried to upload a bit more that season. I think I uploaded like 24-25 days or something like that, so definitely better than the previous season. But then moving on to this most recent season, right when the season came out, I bought a house, so I was going through that entire process, you know, moving in, setting things up, and by the time all that was done, it was kind of like 4 weeks into the season where most of like the initial hype was already like past, so I didn't end up uploading that much that season either. Another thing to note about this entire past year is I started playing another game called TFT. I'm not going to explain exactly what it is, but it's definitely a pretty big game played by a lot of people, competitive strategic game. And over the past year, I've gotten pretty good at it. This set, I hit Challenger and peaked ranked 100 in North America, which means if I played it when sets actually came out, I could definitely play in their tournaments and things like that. So I'm kind of in a weird spot where I want to play TFT, but I also want to play Destiny and upload it, obviously. So I guess I need to figure out how to balance those two things long term as we go. But this year I plan being back to Destiny like I used to be, uploading at least hopefully the first 30 plus days of each season like I used to. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for the video. Quite a long one, I think. Have fun tomorrow when Lightfall comes out, and we'll probably start uploading at least by Wednesday and hopefully not be stopping anytime soon. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.